Live from Lincoln and broadcasting across the state of Nebraska, it's the Average Joe Sports Show. This is the place for Husker sports with the biggest names, the best interviews, and all the inside scoops.
I got a front row seat with a big tub of buttered popcorn and a greasy half-live chicken leg.
Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
With some Bill Doleman this morning, weekend edition with you a little bit after 7:30-ish, 7:36 to be exact. But hey, it's game time is on time.
And for those listening on the air, it's just afternoon.
Right.
So how about it's 2 times at once right now?
that is wonderful. Slap me, time hack, but
bit of a Matrix moment here. To
something like that. But the old butterfly effect, right? We can get into that. The big picture, small picture of today's ball game for Nebraska football. That's Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt, Bill Doleman. And good to be with you on the Average Joe Sports Show. Weekend edition. Can always find us 7 days a week. Like and subscribe on YouTube to the Average Joe Sports Show YouTube channel. Now, as you're hearing us, can also catch Real Red Reaction around 6 tonight on KFOR, KFORnow.com, and all of our thoughts and reaction for what happened with Nebraska, Maryland. We'll get our shout-outs going. We'll get yep, James. I am in the office. The Sig Ep Open gets going at 10, and that's just a awful Schmidt tee shot away from the studio. So a little convenience, but let's move it into the office. What do you say? And fellas, been talking about Nebraska, Maryland all week. Some good feels if you're a Nebraska fan, where you're trying to put together, 4 quarters of football for that victory. That didn't happen last Saturday, the 4 quarters part, but you got the victory. You were the stronger team in the 4th quarter, and you're looking to take that, pack your defense and special teams, of course, on the road a little bit later on. Some early weather reports, it sounds like. Weather should hold and rain in the area after kickoff. Now, that's all good. Big Al checking in as he's leaving from West Virginia, 11 his time, as he's headed down to crab cake and football country. Jeff Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, wants us to go till 5 today. We could maybe try a marathon once upon a time, but not today. He says, go Cubs, go. Big game 5 tonight. No, you're going Milwaukee, Bill?
No, I don't care.
Okay.
I'm just happy the little guy pulled off a victory the other night over Philadelphia, and I keep hoping the Dodgers are that little engine that can.
No, I get it. Elijah, how we shaking this morning? What's a good word?
Oh, man, that Mariners game last night, it was at the point where I'm like, I'm ready to go to bed, but I can't go to bed because the baseball is too good. There was excitement in just about every single inning and extra innings.
Pitch.
Mariners pull it out. What's there not to love? I was a bit of a bandwagon Mariners guy, I'll admit, going into the postseason. So to see that was fantastic. It kept me up a little bit too late, but I'll always take great baseball.
And checking in, our West Coast correspondent, combing the California coastline for skill players and recruits.
Jeez.
Mark Kraynak with us.
What are we doing starting so early here? What happened?
Little bit of a personal day deal today with Junior and the Sig Ep golf outing. It's Dad's weekend.
Did I think for some reason I was thinking it was 7:45 this morning? It was 7:30.
We're re-airing this later for our KFOR listeners, noon to 2.
Oh, so it's actually we're not going to give times right now because that could confuse people driving.
Sure.
Oh,
we've already screwed that up. We've already fumbled inside the red zone, Kraynak.
Yeah.
Might as well keep trying.
People are looking at changing their clocks on their radio.
How's the old West Coast, dude?
It's good. Low 50s right about now. Thank you. Low 50s. Doing some moving stuff.
Yeah,
get some moving stuff going on. So yeah, it's all good. I'm very surprised that we're just on the air right now. I thought I was joining early to be like, all right, fellas, what's going on? What are we going to talk about? And instead.
We're going to talk about Maryland, Nebraska, but how you feeling with Nebraska, partner? As you look at the opportunity today to go get a road win and kind of keep this train moving the right way.
Feeling a great deal of anxiety, per normal, per any, per any Husker game, right? I mean, especially on the road. Nebraska's been terrible on the road. Nebraska's not a good road team. You know, I don't mean to pee on everyone's Cheerios already, but they have not been good on the road, and it doesn't matter if the opponent is good, right? So it's a little concerning considering the talent level that Maryland has. Specifically the ones that are like counter to what Nebraska has struggled with. They're really good off the edge defensively. Oh, great. That sounds awesome. We saw what happened the last time that went down, right?
Should be used to it by now.
It doesn't mean you're good at it. Just because Mike Tyson punches you in the face every day doesn't mean you all of a sudden learn how to stop it.
Yeah.
You know, like
you start
just
liking
get punched in the face. Yeah. So I don't know.
That's a great comparison. I love that.
Well, it's true. And so
I am really good at getting punched in the face now.
I can take a punch like nobody.
Yeah. After all these years, I finally got good at it.
Right. And who knows? Maybe that is how it all works. But I don't know. So it's a little bit concerning. Just because I do think Maryland is talented. I don't think it's a sleepy Big Ten team like a Purdue. Respect to Purdue, even though I just totally disrespected them, and Northwestern, right? Where there's
that covers it though. You said it, so that covers it. You're okay.
Yeah, it takes away the
sting.
The insult that I just levied at them is gone now. Or a Northwestern that doesn't really have just that level of talent. I think Maryland has talent. They got dudes that are going to play on Sundays. That being said, I don't know how they're going to move the ball that well unless Nebraska's pass defense has cracks in the foundation that we haven't seen yet. I don't see it. I think quarterback's really good. I think Malik Washington is a legitimate. He looks like a Sunday guy already, even as a freshman. It's not hard to imagine that's where he'll end up. But I don't think the receivers are great. No.
That's my question is the receiving core with the numbers they've put up, and Nebraska's done a great job what's been in front of them with the secondary, but there's a lot to focus in on. And there's been a lot of pats on the back, deservedly so, for the Nebraska secondary, but I just get queasy when I see no fly zone digital media going out, this part of the year going into the road. You start to feel yourself a little bit. Bill, you've got the unique experience of knowing and working with Mike Loxley. So all that being said, you should have an advantage in this. Like Loxley can recruit. We were going through his credentials, and the guy can recruit. He can coach fellas. But as a head coach, I mean, the guy's in year 7, and he's almost 30 games under 500. He is not somebody that you can't out-coach, per se, in the fourth quarter, Bill.
He's a great recruiter. Took the job at New Mexico, got that because of his offensive coordinating prowess.
Broyles Award winner under Saban.
Yeah, and he was the offensive coordinator at Illinois, and got the job at New Mexico and was a disaster. Nice guy, heart of gold. But there was nothing to what was going on at New Mexico. The players he was recruiting are from the same areas that he's recruiting now. So you're trying to convince a kid from Maryland to come out and play in Albuquerque. Good luck with that. Their interest level diminished quite a lot. And then he rebuilt his career by going into that Nick Saban rehab program for coaches, and eventually became their offensive coordinator. So he's got a great offensive mind, I think. But in terms of game management and being the head coach, it hasn't worked at other places, and it didn't work last weekend in the fourth quarter. So He was a great guy to be around, no question about it. But I just don't think that as a head coach, he's got a program that's going to be a consistent winner, and that's obvious because his record says that he's not a consistent winner. Now, you mentioned, look, they've got a 4-1 record. You mentioned they've got a good offensive team, but Nebraska's defense, I'm guessing, is better than Towson's. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Nebraska has a better defense than Florida Atlantic. I think Nebraska's no-fly zone defense, as much as I hate that stuff too in the middle of a season, hey, let's start giving us platitudes and posters. I think Nebraska's pass defense is better than Illinois or Northern Illinois and Wisconsin. So I don't think they have faced anything like what Nebraska has defensively to offer today. I mentioned yesterday on your show that I would be interested to compare Malik Washington to Bryce Underwood, the 2 freshman quarterback in the Big Ten. But I just think Nebraska's defense is going to be much better than anything he as a true freshman has faced.
Yeah, and what Maryland has is a good amount of young talent. And Mike Locksley talked about it at Big Ten Media Days, where you could tell he kind of hated his team last year.
And they hated him.
Yeah, it was a fractured locker room. Guys that were caring more about their NIL check and what it looked like when they were on the field rather than team results and really going out there playing for Maryland. It was an exodus from that football program last offseason. There were a lot of questions. Man, you brought in some young talent, but you're going to be asking a lot of them early. You've gone a bit to the portal here. Like, what's this going to look like? And Locksley essentially said, I'm excited to have guys that want to play for Maryland. I'm paraphrasing for him, but that's essentially what he said. I think he's got that this year. It's a team that is more willing to play together than last year. It's a team that wants to play for Maryland, but it's still young and it's still got some big issues. And every team's got its warts. But the biggest for Maryland is that they probably a combination of don't want to run the football and can't run the football. Mm-hmm. And I don't think Nebraska is a vaunted run defense as it stands right now. But I also don't think Washington's run defense is elite. I think Wisconsin's is pretty good, but it was three rushes for 6 yards once Maryland jumped out to a 20-0 lead. And that's the whenever you go run the football. And what happens? Washington comes all the way back against Maryland because they refuse to run the football. I think Maryland knows to take some pressure off Malik Washington. They're going to have to run the football a little bit today. It's not what makes them. I think stylistically, the matchup that Nebraska's defense has is big-time advantage Nebraska. You were asking a true freshman quarterback to throw the football into the teeth of your defense, that experienced secondary with a former NFL guy at the helm. He's going to make things really, really tough for Malik Washington. That I believe. To flip it around, though, it's the strength of Maryland's defense against the weakness of Nebraska's offense. So it sets up well for them there. But I think you're asking Malik Washington to throw it probably 40 times in the teeth of Nebraska's defense. Even if Maryland gets 4 or 5 sacks, those can be momentum killers. Those can be drive killers. But I still think Dylan Raiola is going to get his. So I like the advantage that Nebraska has there, the matchup wise, against this Maryland defense compared to Nebraska's defense against Maryland's offense.
The thing for me is what does Nebraska get done running the football? What does Nebraska get done taking a little pressure off of Dylan? What does Nebraska do with their passing game? Is it a 3-step drop? Is it, Bill, you've talked about this week, some movement in the pocket from Dylan Raiola and some hitches, some slants. I mean, Dana's got about every pass pattern known to man. And the guy puts together really solid game plans. But to me, the gold will be running behind some guys, if Pritchett can go, running behind Gatula, that interior line, being able to just hammer away at Maryland and challenge those young edge players that live for 3rd and 8. But how do they like 1st and 2nd down when it's nitty-gritty time? That's kind of my question mark. What can Nebraska get done success-wise running the football? How is breakfast or brunch, Kraynak? What are we eating?
Sugar smacks and honeycomb.
I saw Honey Smacks yesterday for the first time. I'm like, wow, still around. No, never heard anybody say Honey Smacks.
Were you at the Foxy Lady?
In the 2020s.
Yeah. Is that one of the performers?
Where'd you run it? Where did you run into Honey Snacks?
It was at a grocery store. All right.
Oh.
She's got to eat too. Wow. Does any of this change the calculation though about Malik Washington? Considering, not like I said, I don't love their receivers. They go 6'3", 6'2", 6 foot, but they also go senior. Their top three guys, and then their tight ends solid too, 6'5", 230, kind of that perfect tight end size. Does it change?
They remind me. Sorry, not to cut you off here, Mark, but Schmidt and I had this conversation before earlier in the week. He called Maryland's receivers, top to bottom, the most talented receiver core Nebraska has faced. I kind of think they're Cincinnati-esque. Good tight ends, good players that are good athletes, but I don't think they pose more of a threat to Nebraska than Cincinnati. And we'll see at 2:30 if I'm right or wrong in that take. But I think they're good. I think their quarterback makes them look probably better than they are. They're solid, but I don't think they're better than Nebraska's secondary. Back to you, Mark. Sorry to cut you off. I'll let you eat a little bit. You're welcome.
No, thank you. I told you guys threw me off. So by starting on time at the time that you starting at the time that you texted that you would, somehow that still surprised me. So the other thing about Washington though is he gets the ball out. He doesn't do the Raiola thing from what I've seen. He's pretty decisive. He's more than fine to just dump it off. So does that nullify the pass rush a little bit? Do the senior, the experience at receiver, does that nullify Nebraska's advantage in the secondary? Which is one of their big ones too, right? Just having that experience level. I don't know. I just don't. It's very hard to count any road game as a gimme, no matter who you're playing, like for real, no matter who you are playing, unless you go on the road to Towson or Florida Atlantic, right? You might feel okay about that. A Big Ten team on the road, I don't know. Don't feel amazing about it, but Nebraska should win, of course.
Well, it's something I've said earlier this week. If Nebraska wants to take the next step, you got to take care of business against the teams you should beat. And I think they made a step in game one against Cincinnati whenever they, in a tight ball game late, overcame, made a play, got out of there with a victory. That was a step in the right direction towards building Nebraska back to where it needs to be. When the game is tight, when the game is on the line, you go make a play, you win it. You kind of exercise some demons there. And then against Michigan State, you lose all the momentum in that football game midway through that game. And there's folks leaving in the third quarter because they've seen this story before. Nebraska loses all the momentum against a team that they're better than, and they are never able to reclaim it. Well, Nebraska went and reclaimed the momentum last week, got a win, even though it didn't look pretty for all four quarters. That's a step in the right direction. The next step I want to see is on the road, at home, doesn't matter. Can you continue taking care of business against teams that you should be taking care of business against? And Maryland is a team. Look at the Vegas line. Look at the talent that you have on your roster.
Yeah.
It is. Look at the resources that you have at Nebraska, that shiny new facility, the 90,000 people you pack in there. Maryland doesn't get any of that.
Under Armour sucks too. Yep.
Great point. This is a team that you should be taking care of business against. If Nebraska is moving in the right direction as a football program, if what Matt Rule is preaching at practice and at his press conferences is true and you're committed to the process and your team is committed to the process, you go out and you win that football game today. And the process isn't about results, but this is a game that I think process is going to be important because Maryland's on fall break, might be a little bit sleepy out there. You might have a chance of rain in the second half. Like, none of that matters if you were a team that goes out there, commits to the process, and embodies that. Like, motivation won't matter, rain won't matter. So we'll see. But it to me feels like a prove it game with Nebraska moving in the right direction as a football program. This is a game that you go take care of business against a team that you should beat.
And it's a good time to have a road game. I mentioned this yesterday as well. Sometimes it's just good to get away. Boys will be boys, and you get on the road. You're sequestered in a hotel room for a couple days. No distractions. You don't have to go to class. So I think that, for them at this point in the season, Kansas City, they got away, but that was close. They left on Thursday. I just think there's a real benefit to getting away from home for a little while and having that team chemistry, all that kind of stuff. I think there's just a lot of positives for them to be there. Now, the one thing you hope doesn't become a factor is that Northwestern Stadium, the Schnapp Stadium, where you can hear the bottle get tipped over and nobody cares and nobody's there, because then it gets sleepy. Purdue last year, perfect example of that. You get lulled into sleep. There's no atmosphere. It's boring and it's tough to play. I'm glad it's not an early game out there. I'm glad they're playing in 2:30 or whatever it is kickoff, 3:30 kickoff out there. But I think there's a real benefit for the first time Nebraska being away from home.
Look at comment here from Game Dog. Think about the pressure the offense put on the defense for Nebraska in 2 straight quarters. Nebraska's D held the line versus that pressure. Maddie has them going in the right direction. And, that's what this conversation turns into. On one hand, you're favored, go win a road game against a like record squad to continue to prove the progress. The other side of it is on any given Saturday, a Big Ten road trip can be a snake pit and you can stub your toe. And then it turns into, what's going on with Nebraska football? I mean, it's a continual build. And right now, Nebraska's 1-0 in October, guys. Do they get to 2-0 in October? Can they ... be unbeaten in October? I know we're getting ahead of ourselves from today, but today is part of that process. And you still have jockeying, and I don't think Nebraska's a playoff team. It'd be cool if they surprised a lot of us and got into that conversation. But a ball game that they get out of Dodge with a win today helps further that conversation. Maryland's not a data point. The committee's going to go, oh, look at that win at Maryland. It's a supposed to thing, but in the bigger picture, it helps make that argument for you with what's left on the schedule. And what you've seen is this team get better. You got better on defense. You made jumps. I've got a few players circled I want to get into a little bit later. That we'll see if they show some more flashes. They got some snaps in important time last week. But can Nebraska focus in, play cleaner football on offense, keep what they've been doing on defense, keep growing that, and then be a difference maker in special teams? There's a lot of folks calling shots for Barney to take one to the house today. That could be one of the differences in a 6.5 point game per Vegas is Nebraska's special teams. They're not a liability anymore. They're a factor in a win, and they were last week. They need to be again on the road this week.
I think the special teams is a huge factor for Nebraska at this point.
Yeah,
teams have to prepare for that. It can't be. It used to be teams knew that Nebraska is just paying cursory attention to it, so we really don't need to pay attention to their special teams either. All you got to do is punt the ball near the 10. They're going to call for a fair catch. You don't have to worry about schemes in terms of how they're going to rush the punter instead of just always coming from the outside and trying to get there. Well, now you've got Jameer Khan doing what he did, where he did it from. You've got a punter that has some versatility to him that who knows, we've heard that he can run and pitch and throw and catch and punt with both feet. So there's some versatility there that you got to be wary of. That block punt, I think last week was an exclamation point on how seriously, and we knew this was going to be the case with Mike Eckler coming back. But I think it sends a message to everybody else that, damn it, we got to spend at least 30 minutes a day on Nebraska's special teams and where they might be coming from. We got to be worried about Barney and how they try to cut him free, because, he's had more than just the one punt that he scored on a touchdown that got called back. He's had some big returns where he's nearly broken it.
Well,
so there's something that's working in the return game too.
That is like the number 2 all-time punt return touchdown that never was, behind Corey Dixon against Florida State. That was so pretty. All right. That was, I think, sort of what we've all been expecting of Barney, but for whatever reason, either the turf monster or somebody who gets a hold of one of his shoelaces has stopped him from eluding all the defenders and go, it's in him, but you really saw it there. And how is it possible? Maybe this is just recovery from years of special teams fair catching and woes. Because that was one of the most frustrating things ever, even to the point where I remember there was even a narrative that came out from one of the coaches like, well, yeah, people don't return the ball anymore. It's not the 90s. All right. They don't even return it anymore. This is just how it is. Nothing to see here. You're like, no, quit lying. Like, you're lying. How come Barney has a 7-yard halo every time he catches a ball now? Like, is that just, is it as simple as you're blocking the gunners better?
They're killing the gunners.
My God.
He's not going to touch Oliver Martin's fair catch record.
They're killing the gunners, and whenever you watch the return, so there's the block plays where they're trying to get after the punter, and then there's the return plays. Look how hard those guys in the interior are just stonewalling their guys to the line of scrimmage. I was watching that whenever I rewatched Michigan State, and I compared it to a couple of games last year. Look how hard those guys are working to prevent those protectors from getting off the line of scrimmage. They make all their hay right there. They are absolutely working their tails off, just holding those guys at the line of scrimmage. So when Barney catches the football, he's got 15 yards of green space in front of him. That's the big thing that stands out. Is last year it was Nebraska that, hey, they'd make an effort at the line of scrimmage, and they're turning and running and trying to do what they can. This year it is guys working like I can't believe at the line of scrimmage, making sure everyone, not just the gunners, it's those guys next to the long snapper too that are just struggling to get off the line of scrimmage. It's impressive to watch.
So why was that not always the, like, that's the job, right? How did that go away? What were they doing instead? Like, for a couple of seconds, be like, go ahead.
You get good at what you emphasize. The old late great Jack Pierce always would say. And guess what? Mike Eckler came to town. They started emphasizing everything and anything.
Can any of those interior guys play tackle by chance? They do a good job of letting free runners do what they want to do. Yeah. I don't know.
We'll check in with Brandon Vogel here momentarily with Counter Reed, counterreed.com. Get his take on Nebraska and Maryland. Andrew Marshall is celebrating a birthday today.
Hey.
Is
in the no-fly zone.
Yeah, the no-fly zone. I love that nickname for Sparty's secondary back in the day when they had Denard and company circa 2013.
The Broncos, the Denver Broncos Super Bowl year. That was the real no-fly zone.
Okay.
I don't care what Michigan State says.
Is that the Champ Bailey era?
No, we're talking the Chris Harris Jr., Aqib Talib era. TJ Ford,
Talib.
When they won the Super, that was the real no-fly zone. So I don't care what Michigan State says. Go Broncos.
That's fine.
One thing we do need to talk about here, though, before we get to Brandon Vogel, rumors of a banged up left tackle going into this game today. Yeah. That I want to get your take on, knowing Maryland's got speed guys off the edge, and if it is a banged up left tackle with a potential ankle injury, the worry level there.
We'll get to that as you're hearing us on KFOR, KFORnow.com, Average Joe Sports Show Weekend Edition, getting ready for Nebraska and Maryland. Like and subscribe to the Average Joe Sports Show on YouTube. Find us on Twitter, AJ Sports Radio, Chris Schmidt, Mark Kraynak, Elijah Herbel, Prada Fairbury is Bill Doleman. And also check out postings, KFORnow.com, the website, also along with Spotify, iTunes, and Google Play. Here is Brandon Vogel with Counter Reed, counterreed.com. And Vogues, it's Maryland, and we're talking left tackle availability for Nebraska football. And Pritchett's a guy that has continued to grind to go win that left tackle spot. He's a talent that Nebraska went in and got from the portal. You've invested heavily, and his best game is when it's him murdering people off the edge. He is a phenomenal run blocker, and that setup seems too good to be true against a couple of freshman light edge rushers for Nebraska's success today. But we're wondering if Pritchett is able to go. How we doing this Saturday morning, man? Thanks for jumping in.
I'm doing well, thank you. Yeah, it's interesting whether Pritchett's available or not. That's kind of one of the, I think, unknowns going into this game, because we know how Nebraska likes to and has mostly successfully moved the ball to this point this season, and it's been, kind of pass first as their weapon. And this Maryland defense has been good across the board, both against the run and against the pass. But you're going on the road. Do we see a little dose of recent past Nebraska, meaning 23-24, where we get a little bit heavier focus on the run game? Do they think they can potentially exploit the extreme athleticism, but also the still inexperience of those freshman edges for Maryland, and try and make them right? Because I think we know, or at least have a bad idea of what that might look like if Nebraska drops back all day against a team that's, well, way better than Michigan State was a week ago at getting to the passer, and Michigan State still found a way to get there.
Could it be that Nebraska maybe unveils a little bit more diversity in the run game today? You have to figure that it's in there. You just haven't seen it a lot. Against Michigan, you kind of got to the point to where you kind of couldn't, right? The run game was kind of taken away from you in some ways, just by virtue of how the game progressed. You were sort of forced to throw. That happened a little bit against Michigan State too, right? When you got down at that 21-14 spot, it just feels like Nebraska's only been running just a simple zone scheme. Has been about what their run game is consisted of, outside of some stuff inside the red zone where they're, doing the motion jet sweep passes and those little things. But the way you saw Justin Evans get out on that screen, you obviously have a center that can get out in space and target somebody, and that's a luxury at center, right? That's when you have that, you should take advantage of that. But you haven't seen a lot of that. Unless I'm speaking out of turn, Elijah, I know you watch offensive line a lot closer than the rest of us, but it feels like they haven't taken advantage of his mobility yet. You've seen it maybe some with Rocco. I think they've had Rocco pull a little bit. It feels like they could do more. It's what he did at Notre Dame a lot. Could we see that? Could we see a little more diversity in the run game today? Because Maryland's not very good against the run.
Well, the center pull is unique. You don't see it much in football.
It's pretty hard, isn't it?
It's hard. As a guy who played center, that they let me pull occasionally, it was an absolute joy to do so. But it is a much different look to have your center go and pull. That is diversity in the run game. There's not many running plays that feature a center pull. Simple as that. Power, counter, all those things. It's not ideal for you. I'm more curious, can Nebraska get Justin Evans up to second level on those downhill running plays? I feel like he's at the line of scrimmage trying to dig out a nose guard more than he is getting up to second level, where I haven't been super impressed with Rocco and Latovsky, their ability to get up to linebacker and get hands on those guys. Like, that's the thing that I think Michigan did incredibly well. Their guards were fantastic, getting hands on Nebraska's backers and getting their running back one-on-one with a safety. I haven't seen great work from Nebraska there. I wonder if you can find some ways to get Justin Evans up to second level, because I think he's probably the best athlete from a side-to-side lateral movement point of view, and that really helps whenever you're on linebackers. And Rocco and Latovsky, it's not their strong suit. I'll say that.
And here's what's great about Nebraska's run game is that they have firmly established, if they want to go to more of that today, is that they have firmly established an RB2 without question, right?
So we don't have to put all the pressure on the Average Joe Sports Show.
Dude. We don't have to put all the pressure on Emmett Johnson anymore, because we know who can handle another 15 carries or so at this point in the season, because it's you know who I'm talking about, right? Is this going to be a game again where, like we said this at the beginning of the season, Emmett Johnson cannot, get average 30 to 35 touches a game, 25 carries and 10 catches or whatever the case might be. But here we are going into the sixth game of the season, And we got no clue as to. Remember last week or 2 weeks ago was the mystery guy. Who's the mystery guy on Nebraska's offense?
We're gonna figure
Still
it
a mystery. That was it. Look, it's gonna be big. Yep, we unveiled a mystery. I have no idea. So if they want to rely on the run a little bit to take some pressure off of Raiola, is this where you go? Hey, Emmett, remember what we did earlier this season? We're going to do that again while we continue to have American Idol auditions or whatever we have for RB2, so we can take some pressure off you. But just for 1 week and 1 week only, I promise. 35 touches, just survive it, and we'll have somebody ready for you against Minnesota.
Vogues, do you have the magic 8-ball out? Can you shake it, and can you come up with a name? I mean, we're talking Mekhi Nelson, 2 runs of over 10 yards today.
Will they stop blue balling Mekhi Nelson? That would.
Oh, Caden Proctor, Alabama's future first-round tackle, has 20% of the carries as that Mekhi Nelson does on the year. And that's just like a wrinkle that Alabama does for a little bit of fun, and I think to like maybe try and get the guy to New York for the Heisman ceremony. No, I think when Mark was talking through, do we see some more variety in the run game? And I think QB1 Ace mentioned Nelson. That's kind of more so than like the plays that they call necessarily. I would like to see what this looks like with a little bit more of a true rotation of like making it a point of a part of the plan to get some of those guys involved, like rotate them in and out, because Emmett Johnson's been great. I in terms of the run game and catching the football, I haven't seen a lot to take issue with, but I think getting some different guys in there, all of whom can do different things, might offer you a little bit of a wild card that isn't anything more than making a substitution. So yeah, I'd like to see more Nelson, and I'd like to see Mosey a little bit more. I think in terms of getting a little bit more exotic in terms of the plays that you choose to run, Mosey is probably that option. But let's see. Like let's see what a rotation looks like, because we really haven't yet. So it's something simple you could do that could feel like a pretty big change.
It just feels like so far Nebraska has been treating the run game like a jab in boxing. It's just right. They're not even
very good, Mark.
Right. Like it's right. Yeah. Right. I've been watching a lot of Terrence Crawford AI generated documentaries.
Really good analogy.
AI generated documentary. They're taking over YouTube right now, man. As a history documentary lover on YouTube, man. Yeah. I flip. I'm like, oh, that looks interesting. I flip it on. You just hear that it's AI voice, and you go,
yeah,
man.
And they show like the same sound bites like 3 times in the first 2 minutes. You're like, okay, nobody actually edited this.
No, listen to AI and post it on YouTube, and now I'm the loser.
But really, that's all they've treated it as, though, right? They've just kind of done it to be like, hey, we can do this too, versus like trying to make it a weapon. It feels like so far, and it seems like you have a guy at center where you can do unique things with. You should Greg Esslinger won a Heisman Trophy at Minnesota, or not a Heisman, an Outland Trophy at Minnesota by doing that. They just pulled him every freaking play, and then like kind of mid to late 2000s. And it's different. Cam Jurgens, same thing. Frost figured out a way to get him out in space to be able to target guys, because that's hard to prepare for. You have a guy like that, it seems like. And when you have a run game that really hasn't gotten untracked, I don't know. That's the wannabe coach in me's recommendation this morning. Get Jackson out, get Evans out in space, do something different in the run game, especially while you're seeing Emmett starting to progress a little bit. He's starting to see cutback lanes, and he's still missing a handful, but he is developing a little more finesse to his game.
And in terms of vision, which is kind of one of those running back intangibles that you'll talk to former players. Oh yeah, you can get better with vision, but to be a running back with good vision, I think you're born with it just a little bit. And yeah. I think back to Divine Azigbo as the last guy with true vision from the Nebraska running back spot. And vision's one of the most important things to be a running back. Emmett's got it. Does he have the breakaway speed? No, not necessarily. But whenever he goes and picks up these 5 and 6 yard chunk plays, it tends to be because he's got the right vision. And I love to see that. And 5 and 6 yards, I think, will work for you against Maryland. It's going to be super important to slow down those Maryland edge rushers. And in order to do that, hey, they can't get 6 yards upfield if they're playing against the run. So I think you really have to establish the running game to help out your offensive tackles and pass protection. I don't know. I think 5 and 6 yards, if it's Emmett, 15 to 20 carries, he's got 80, 90 yards at the end of the day, you'll take that as long as there is another running back that's picking up some yards. But
and who's that going to be?
That's the real question. But I think you don't need to have these big explosive running plays in order to beat Maryland. It just, can you slow down their edge rushers and make them think, okay, I'm going to have to play against the run here before I just get after the passer.
Vogues, I want to ask, with that analogy Kraynak made with the run game as a jab, why do you think that is? Is it trust? You know about the red zone issues, or is it just preference?
Probably a little bit of both. I mean, I've been a little surprised, even though we knew kind of what Holgorsen was brought in to do and where he came from. I've been surprised that the run game hasn't been slightly more of a factor. And I mean, when you look at it from pure numbers perspective, they kind of break out pretty close to 50-50. So it's not.
They defend what they're trying to do publicly on the run game.
Yeah. I don't think you've had the long-term success with the run game to do it more. It's been, in dribs and drabs of, oh, okay, you open the game against Michigan with a 14-yard run, and then you don't get anything close to it. Well, that's a good point by Peter as well. Maybe they're using their best tool, which is Raiola, which I think is probably the Occam's razor solution here, the simplest explanation. So I think it's part of that as well. One of the things I'll be interested in early, as kind of an extension of the run game, is Nebraska went to its screen game as like an adjustment once it realized it couldn't block Michigan State in the pass game as well as I thought it probably could have. And I'm guessing that was mostly the same for them. Do they go to that earlier, knowing what Maryland has on the edge and what they've been able to do against teams, 6 sacks against Wisconsin? I think that'll be an early thing to watch, just as a kind of telling piece of how Nebraska feels about its ability to protect the passer. I mean, I still think their shortest path to a win today is running the offenses that they've run. Maybe you try to establish the run a bit more, but it's still kind of like, if you get something from that part of it, like something big, it feels a bit like a bonus. I think the game's still kind of defined by, is Dylan Raiola able to get time to make the throws, and does he make the throws?
And does he get rid of it? Maybe when he should. That's been his thing ever since he walked onto campus, is like he holds it till the last second. He does not have happy feet at all. He really doesn't.
Can we get into the ethereal realms of, can Dylan Raiola create time? Can he create time for himself in the pocket by moving around just a little bit?
We
just
need
a little bit
solo now.
Can he create time for himself in which just a couple of steps left or right to get away from somebody or move out of the pocket? I mentioned it before. Like, Mahomes is still a threat, which keeps those rush ends in the NFL honest. Trevor Lawrence watching him the other day, Mac Jones watching him the other day. There's still, now in the NFL, the quarterbacks still have an ability to get out of the pocket if they have to, buy themselves some time, give receivers an opportunity to run around. Dylan gets the snap back and waits, and time runs out. And as a result, you have 2 targets for Dane Key, who doesn't have time to get open, perhaps. Dylan's not going to create any time for himself to give him an opportunity to deliver the pass. And as much as I think as we like him at Johnson as a running back, they miss Ramir Johnson as a blocking back because, Emmett's not a great blocking tailback that's going to give his quarterback a little extra time too. So they need to figure out a way to create time.
It's you need Dylan Ryla's pregame song to be "Time" by Pink Floyd. Really help him out here.
Yeah.
Dylan, you're frittering wasting your hours, your time back in the pocket in an offhand way.
This is taking a decidedly psychedelic turn this morning. I really like where this is.
Suddenly, I
all
want to go to the planetarium, even though it's
Right, Friday night. Let's go do that. Vogues, any psychedelic music of choice here to add to this conversation?
No. I tried to, get into Pink Floyd. Was never really my thing. All due respect to good friend Mike Babcock. Grateful Dead was, it's good, but I'm not putting that on on a Saturday night after this Nebraska game. So, yeah, I think that side of things just missed me from the music.
You always kind of struck me as like a Fish guy, but if you're not a Grateful Dead guy, you're probably not a Fish guy then.
No, I was not really. The jam band era definitely missed me.
So,
12-minute songs.
what were you into in college, musically, high school?
Everything minus that. Pretty much. It's not that I disliked it. It just wasn't anything where I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to see Fish 6 times this summer.
No. Yeah. Let's just all get smelly and dirty and pretend we like this music. It's no. Bouncing around the room, you'll give them that.
Says the guy
That's a good
sitting in
song.
San Francisco right now.
Yeah,
Listen.
that is Mark Kraynak, the West Coast correspondent with the Average Joe Sports Show. Brandon Vogel with us from Counter Reed. Pride of Fairbury's Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. Weekend edition here, the Average Joe Sports Show. Find us on YouTube. Like and subscribe there as we're talking Maryland and Nebraska. Vogues, want to wind down with your partner and get your take on the big picture implications here of today against Maryland. That's a talking point we hit on leading up to you, but Nebraska's done their job for the most part this year. They've improved, they have gotten better, and now can they go take this additional step on the road? We talk about Rule's road record 2-8, but he's been darn close in most of those in Lincoln. When you look at that year 3 talking point about year three breakthrough, he was 5-0 at Baylor, and his only 2 losses aside from the bowl game he wasn't at were a couple of showdowns against Oklahoma that were shootouts. So, realistically here, if you want to keep that parallel going, it is a game you go get and handle close, or maybe there's some breathing room. But big picture, what do you believe about today's outcome? What's it say?
Well, I think if Nebraska gets the win, I'm probably going to end up in the top 25. Like, some of that's just dependent on what happens there, which is not the biggest deal, but it would be a marker or something, given how long it's been since. I mean, I know they crept in there for a week last year, but it's been a while since Nebraska's been in the top 25 and stayed there. So getting there is the first step of that, and being able to go on the road. And this is a game where I think Maryland's pretty dangerous. Like, it wouldn't surprise me at all if either team won in this one. It's that sort of game. So could Nebraska show that, yeah, you can treat this like a business trip? Because if they do, I think the long term, or the medium term, I guess, implications of that are, look at the rest of the road schedule. Okay, you got another one against Minnesota where, in the preseason, based on power rankings, I was trending towards like Minnesota maybe being a tiny favorite. That's probably not going to be the case now. Penn State game looks different. And then you've got UCLA. So you look at this and it's like, well, maybe you beat Maryland. You take your shot against Penn State. Nebraska still won't be favored in that, I don't think, unless Penn State collapses even further. But all of a sudden you're looking at a year 3 Baylor scenario where you don't lose on the road. And that's a big deal. I would still rate like being almost unbeatable at home as a bigger deal, but you got to be a good road team too. And if you could only have one or the other, given that Nebraska's already dropped a game to Michigan, winning all those road games would be a pretty good substitution.
Are we buying into the Penn State season is done and over and they're terrible?
They still have Indiana. They still have Ohio State. They and USC both could see Nebraska with 3 losses.
Well, I'm just saying, if you look realistically at what Penn State has faced last couple weeks, right? They lost to Oregon, who's pretty damn good, in overtime, right? So it's not like they crapped the bed. I mean, they competed and they lost, right? And then you have a quick turnaround, cross country trip. Little Neuheisel pulled a fast one on them. They weren't prepared literally for anything they were going to face against UCLA, and they lost again. They shouldn't have. I'm not saying that that's excusable necessarily, but it's understandable, I guess, to some degree, how that happened. They roared back in the second half, came close. I just don't buy into that. They're just done and dusted. They still have a shot, in my opinion, at the playoffs.
I think their playoff chances.
They got to win out.
I think their playoff chances are done.
Well, if you got to win out, it means you still got a chance.
Well, they went out and get to the Big Ten title game. They're
okay. Did we think that's going to happen?
No, I think they
exactly.
I think Nebraska sees them in mid-November with 3 losses. Nebraska probably sees USC with 3 losses. So back to the big picture, Nebraska does its job. The teams on their schedule maybe didn't hold their end of the bargain as we fast forward.
There are 3 teams right now that have left playoff spots open that had been all but guaranteed at the beginning of the season: Texas, Penn State, and Clemson. They're not going to the playoff. So I'm not saying Nebraska is going to be one of those teams that's going to usher, rush into there and be a playoff team. I'm not saying that, but those 3 are not going. That's not going to happen. And Penn State's going to lose at least once more. That Nebraska might be the high moment of the rest of their season. They're not going to beat Ohio State. They're not going to beat Indiana. They got one more game against, at home against Nebraska. That might be the chance to salvage some feel good. That's the problem for Nebraska going to Happy Valley, is that, or they might have, tanked it right there. Texas might lose today. Probably will lose today.
Who's Texas got today?
Oklahoma.
Wow.
I mean, the legacy of Arch Manning might be cemented today, right? Because Oklahoma, I think, is not bad.
By the way, I got Texas in that game. I know it's not even an upset pick based on what Vegas says, but I got Texas winning that football game. It's a rivalry game. Throw out what you know. That's my take. But
listen, I'm not saying that Penn State is,
they're still dangerous.
That's my point, right? They're just they're a dangerous squad. They took Oregon to the final bell and then some, right? That's not a crazy loss, in my opinion. The UCLA one's crazy, obviously.
But now the topic of conversation with Penn State is who's replacing James Franklin, which is now a daily topic of conversation about Matt Rule going to Penn State, which, by the way, I don't think is going to happen. But if you have that cloud, over your program for the rest of the season, eventually that takes its toll, not just on the coaching staff, but on the players, the team, and the fans. I think, look, they're better than Nebraska, but they're not in a better situation right now than Nebraska or probably anybody else they're going to play.
Yeah, they can play defense still, which gives you a chance.
Yeah.
I kind of, until we see some more, I treat them as closer in terms of like pure quality to the team that took Oregon to overtime on its home field.
Totally agree.
Than I do the team that lost to UCLA in the sort of upset that hasn't happened since however long ago. I forget the numbers that we saw everywhere from the start of the week. But I think, kind of to Bill's point, I think where he was getting towards is like with the team that preseason number 2. And not just that, but like the team that was supposed to scratch the particular Franklin itch of not being able to get over that last hill, for them not to do that, like if you get a bad result, like you have to worry about, I think, a team just kind of packing it in. I mean, it's kind of what I think they have Northwestern today. Like they'll beat Northwestern, I think. But if they don't, it becomes that issue of like, oh yeah, it felt like the season was shot in 2 weeks.
Brandon Vogel with us from Counterread, counterread.com, weekend edition of the Average Joe Sports Show. Vogues, tell folks about Counterread, you and Aaron Sorensen. How can folks get on board?
Yeah, just head to counterread.com. That'll get you a look at what we're up to. We do a couple of free newsletters a week for that purpose specifically, so people can see what it's all about. And then we have a couple subscriber exclusives. Game day guide went out first thing this morning, so you can check that out. That's always open each game day to all readers, and then subscribers will get access to our game day chat come kickoff.
Do you have a prediction?
Yeah, I'm in the 27-21 range for Nebraska, which means you're not gonna kick your feet up going into the third quarter for this one. If you're a Husker fan, I don't think, because anytime a game's that close, a play or two can swing it, and I think it's gonna be a tough go for Nebraska, but I think they are the better team.
Vogues, we appreciate you, man. Thank you for joining us here on the weekend edition.
Yep. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brandon. Man, listen, Penn State, the Penn State is done talk is premature. I believe it was a horrendous, really bad optics loss last week, like really bad, especially considering that they are, they were, like Brandon mentioned, they're number 2 in the country, right? So that's the standard you're held against is top 5. Totally get that. But they played top 5 worthy against Oregon, in my opinion. They did not last weekend, obviously. There were extenuating circumstances, though, right? Like, should they have been able to overcome it? Yes, they should have. They didn't. That's bad. But that's a dangerous team still. Very dangerous team. Really good running backs. A lot of talent on defense. I don't like Aller's body language. I wonder who they've got behind him.
I don't like how they use Drew Aller. That's my big thing.
Big time.
Like, why are you having Drew Aller carry the ball as much as Nick Singleton?
They'd be better off with the Missouri kid, to be honest.
Yes.
Back for
well, they have an OC that Aller is not a good quarterback for what their OC likes to do. So they have a Drew Aller problem. And they also have the best wish in Penn State, if you're ready to move on from James Franklin, is to have somebody poach your coach. Not fire
who's going to want to do that?
But poach.
Who's going to want to
coach.
do that? If he's that done and if he's that beleaguered, who is going to be like, hey, we're bringing in the most beleaguered coach in America?
I think he's a good football coach, but sometimes you're not a good football coach for that situation. Like, I say that about Kellen DeBoer. I think Kellen DeBoer is a really good football coach. He may not be the perfect guy for Alabama. And the problem with Penn State is James Franklin actually was too successful too early. And they're like, okay, Penn State's back. Well, go back and look at the last time they won a Big Ten championship. I mean, since they won a Big Ten championship, they're 0-8 against Ohio State.
Yeah. Well, how many games has Ohio State lost in that stretch, though? Like 2?
Well, their head coach that'll take the field in Champaign this morning is 75-10, and the guy before him was pretty good. It's just, I think it's Penn. Look at guys. This is why college football is great this year, and actually from a Nebraska perspective, and other teams that are in Nebraska's category, you could fall into the playoffs this year because Texas
is good for Nebraska.
Texas, Ohio State, and Clemson, 3 of the top 4 teams in the country, they've combined to lose 7 games. I mean, we remember 2007 when it was absolute chaos. We haven't had that at the top, but like today feels, if I look at the spreads of road teams, today feels like a very chaotic day in college football, and I think it's a playoff elimination weekend for a lot of teams in college football, especially in the Big Ten and the SEC.
The Iron Horse with us here, Gary Sharp, here on the Average Joe Sports Show Weekend Edition. Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbel, Mark Kraynak, Chris Schmidt, and Gary, you have turtle
Schmitty?
power or Husker power. I love it. Kraynak says rumored rule replacement. Bill Doleman, if you're watching on
That's what people
YouTube,
are
says
saying.
your business name here and are just
I'm for sale.
lowly Twitter handles for myself at Schmidt_radio and at Herbal Essence. But turtle power or Husker power, I like it. How much power, Sharpie, do you anticipate with Nebraska's run game today?
Ooh, that's a tough question because we gotta.
You got a question mark, don't we?
Hey, ask me that question when the availability report comes out in about a couple of hours,
Okay,
and then we
so
can talk about So Elijah Pritchard got stepped on at practice earlier in the week, so he's on the trip.
What do you mean
We're gonna
stepped
see
on?
these-
How did he get stepped on? Like his foot?
They were in a
or like
they were in a
his throat?
scrum. No, his
Okay.
throat. On his foot. On his foot.
Okay.
Ankle,
Okay.
Kraynak.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's
He
go.
did not.
Okay,
Nobody
getting
stepped.
stepped on.
Nobody said you had a bad game against Michigan State. No one walked over and stomped him.
Okay.
Yeah.
You never know. You never know.
Have
Practices
fun,
get physical.
have fun trying that, by the way. It's 6'7",
That's what I'm
3
saying.
builds.
Who did that?
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
whoever did that is tough.
I think this
Yeah.
is an interesting week stretch here, because by the time we talk again next Saturday, Nebraska will play 2 football games, and they will kind of be 2 games that form middle of the year where you think the program is going. I don't know. I go back and forth today on this. I know everybody's predicting a close game. God, I look at the other side of the ball. That Maryland throws it. They don't run it very well at all. I mean,
No.
Nebraska, like Maryland says, hold my beer when we're talking about can Nebraska run the football. I wonder if Maryland's able to stay on the field on 3rd down. And if they're not able to do that with the special teams factored in, I think Nebraska has a chance to have some short fields. There's one part of me, guys, that say 28-14 type game. There's another part that says 27-21 type game. But I think how Nebraska handles today will tell me a little bit more about what's going on with Nebraska football, because this is the first time since they started training camp that they've been away from campus for 2 straight days. They went out there on Thursday. They practiced yesterday at kind of an unorthodox site. Guys they all are in routine where you leave on Friday, you get to the hotel, you do your things, you wake up the next morning and play. Well, they had an extra day, and then they don't play until 3:30 local time today. So they've got to do all of that and then, come back and play on a short week. But if you're telling me that you're a good team, and I believe Nebraska is a good team, you find a way to win these kind of football games.
Yeah.
And also another stat, guys. Nebraska hasn't won back-to-back road games since when?
2006.
How about that? That is wild.
Kansas State, Iowa State. Did we do that research
Yeah, that was
this
the Average
week?
Joe Research Department yesterday. And then our stream chat mentioned that.
Think about that, guys. That is unbelievable. I mean, we talk about the struggles of protecting home field at Memorial Stadium, but God, you learn a lot about a program when they go on the road and they grab a victory. 2006. There's a lot of things that have changed in 19 years.
Elijah's changed
Where do you
a
want to
lot
start?
since then.
Elijah was barely born.
Elijah looks a lot
I
different.
was 7. I was 7.
Junior was just finding his way into the world.
Yeah, that is crazy.
I mean,
to think
College
about.
freshmen were just finding their way into the world. That's crazy.
Yep, November 10th,
They were fresh out the womb.
Mo Purify game. We should have named him Mo instead of Carson.
So is this all Carson's fault? Nebraska can't win 2 road games?
It's his mother. It's always his
Carson
mother's
Schmidt's
fault.
I mean, Harrison
But
Beck was a bona fide backup at that time, right? Like, wasn't he? Zach Taylor was, the sitting head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals was the quarterback. Like,
On his way to Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It has been a while. But the 2
We're all
teams
here for it.
I know. The 2 teams that Nebraska's facing the next 2 weeks, it's the pack that Nebraska's trying to break out of, right? Like it's that middle tier of the Big Ten that Nebraska has just been squarely setting up shop in. They're trying to, you win these next 2, you've kind of separated yourself and you've now moved into upper third.
And you're
of the
bowl
Big Ten.
eligible.
Yeah.
If Nebraska wins today and next week, we could be sitting here next Saturday talking about Where?
Lookout Fenway. Let's go.
No,
We're gonna do that. We're gonna do the
Don't-
MLB tour.
dudes. If
New Year's
Nebraska,
Eve, Tampa.
thank you. Get me somewhere sunny and nice. If you don't
Oh.
get to a playoff,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Let's talk about a December game at Memorial Stadium.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be hosting. You'd probably go to Norman.
you need some help there with Washington, Michigan, SC.
Well,
you're
there-
going to need
so-
some help to be a playoff team.
So let's play this game. First and foremost, Nebraska has to take care of business on their own.
Yes, right.
Yeah, we're
But
looking
there is a possibility that Nebraska doesn't play a ranked team the rest of the year.
Yeah.
You know, USC's got 2 important games before they ever show up in Lincoln. They've got today against Michigan, then they got to go to Notre Dame next week. Then they have their bye, and then Penn State is not currently ranked. Maybe the only way Penn State probably gets back in the rankings is a win against Indiana and a win against
And
Ohio State.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See,
so
that's so crazy to me. that
So
Penn
the door.
State's
So
not
this is
ranked.
where Nebraska has done a good job of preventing prosperity in their football program. These scenarios that could play out, Nebraska finds a way to shoot themselves in the foot. Okay, and say, "Oh, you were going to hand us a nice little path. Nah, we're okay. We're gonna dribble it, off our leg." So it's an interesting way the thing sets up. But today's a pretty important game, I think, for Nebraska. Because it's still do you guys trust them? We're all 5 games into the season. We're halfway through. We're actually halfway through Dylan Raiola's career today. If we're banking on that he is gone after next year, is this current football team not just certain areas, but do you trust them to handle business today and just win, whether they cover or not? They go on a road, unique place against an opponent you don't see very often, against a team that, they were a quarter away from being 5-0, and maybe game day or some show is there. Who knows? I think we're going to find out if we trust this team today to handle business in a unique situation.
What do you believe about the Washington hype, the quarterback?
I think he's a big boy. He's 6'5", 231. Now, remember, their wide receivers drop balls. They've dropped 21 balls this year. In comparison, Nebraska's only dropped 6 in 5 games. I think he's paired with a really good OC. Their OC and DC are NFL guys. Ted Monticino, who's got 2 really good rush ends and a linebacker to work with. And then Pep Hamilton, who is familiar with the Big Ten, Michigan, and then in the NFL. I think they control him. They don't let him get too crazy. He doesn't run. They don't design runs, but he's a big guy. If you get a chance to bring him down, you've got to bring him down. But I like what they do in their offense with him. He's got the makings of somebody that could be really good and play somewhere else, after Maryland makes a move, maybe. But he's a good quarterback he's a good quarterback for their OC. Yeah. I'll be curious to see if Nebraska tries to, because John Butler, we've learned, is really good at coverages. Okay. It seems like that's a strength. And we saw that in the transition from Michigan to Michigan State is, do they throw some things at him that he hasn't seen in his first 5 games?
Listen, he's a progression guy. He does not play like a true freshman at all. Even from game 1, he looks like the position and the assignment is not too big for him at all.
But again, he's progression reading against Towson, Florida Atlantic.
For sure.
It's the same thing. We can say the same thing about Nebraska. Look, Dylan and the run game looked really, really good against Akron and Houston Christian, and then they get into the ring, and then the big fight, and looked pedestrian against Michigan, and got things going against Michigan State. But I don't think Maryland. Malik Washington has really faced anything too taxing other than the fourth quarter against Washington. And when the pressure got to them, they end up losing the game. So I think the defense that he's going to face today against Nebraska is by far the biggest and most complex test that he's going to face.
Yeah.
And trying to get acclimated and learn on the fly. He's going to be a better quarterback after today than he is going into today, but it may not go well for him today.
They do a really good job. With all of that said, Bill, they do a really good job of protecting him. I mean, they've only given up 2 sacks. He also doesn't hold on to the ball.
He protects it pretty well too. He protects it pretty well. He doesn't throw a lot of picks.
That's the thing. Today is the thing of you want your quarterback to look like a guy that's starting his 19th game in college compared to the guy that's starting his 6th. And, and that's kind of going back to last Saturday. I thought there were a couple of times during the game against Michigan State, Dylan looked like a guy that was playing in his 6th game in college. And then he turned around and he looked like he was the guy that was playing in his 18th game.
And look, we all talked last week about how good Aiden Childs is, and Nebraska made him look scared. I mean, they got to him and they hit him, and you're right. We talked about it after the game that he did not look right after Judy hit him. But that's the toughest test that he's had, and I think Washington will have his toughest test today, and Nebraska could. If they can get to him and hit him, it's going to be he'll be a different quarterback, just like Childs was. And then, of course, Nebraska knocks Aiden Childs into saying, "I pretty much don't care about any Michigan State fan anymore. I'm just here to collect a check and go," which was not exactly a great way to endear yourself to your fan base.
Now they do prevent his hits. It's just the fact that he's not.
I don't care about the fans anymore.
The fact that he's not a mobile guy is you don't get a lot of licks on him. Because they've only run maybe on one hand designed runs for him this season. So
he has 3 rushing touchdowns, but they're all from close.
Yeah,
he's big.
Like when you do have a chance to hit him in the pocket, which is very rare, you got to hit him, but you got to bring him down, man. He is a big guy. He's 6'5", 231. I'm really, Maryland, Loxley wins in September against lesser competition, and then the Big Ten starts, and all of a sudden they go south. They have 64 new guys. They play 40. They have 40 of them are true freshmen or in that range. They have 8 true freshmen that play prominent roles, and the rest of the 17 teams in the Big Ten have a combined 8 that are in that same category. They're a very interesting team will they have a chip on their shoulder trying to prove that the fourth quarter was a fluke, or are they just Maryland that has played Wisconsin and then Washington woke up once they realized they were on the East Coast and that fourth quarter fell apart? It's a good matchup for Nebraska. It's very unique because it's going to force Nebraska to be good in the margins again, which is penalties, turnovers, special teams, 3 areas in which they haven't been their own worst enemy.
You have painted a picture of opportunity. Gary Sharp, Iron Horse, with us here on the Average Joe Sports Show. This picture you've painted, and we've talked about Loxley as the head man in the headset, can give you and keep the door open in the fourth quarter, historically through his career. You've got the youth part of this conversation, not only at quarterback, but the guys you're worried about coming off the edge if you're Nebraska to protect Dylan. This is moving into a category for me is you can't lose this game if you're Nebraska.
Yeah.
Even if it is midway through the year, and I don't think the panel we're talking with this morning thinks Nebraska's a playoff team. Could get into that position, but from a progress standpoint, Gary, I mean, you have it in front of you right now. If you're Nebraska, go handle your business. I mean, you're favored this month theoretically, and you have a chance right now to get some fixes. We were talking about 4 quarters of good football. How many quarters of good football do you get today from Nebraska on offense?
Ooh, on offense, I will give you 3 quarters of good offense.
Okay.
I mean, I'm almost thinking there was a lot of talk about Key, so maybe he gets featured early. What do they do with Dylan? I think probably they do some things different with Dylan. You saw in the second half, whether it be Lindemeyer blocking when they were running some counters, they tried to run some crack screens. Like Holgerson's screen game design is really good. There's the other part of today to add to your question and for you guys, are we in a position where, teams took away the slot against Nebraska or against Michigan State? Michigan State stopped the slot, and that's where Dylan likes to throw is kind of a trap door. Nebraska's wide receivers, and Schmidt, we were sitting upstairs on Saturday. Nebraska's wide receivers didn't get much separation in man coverage. So does Holgerson try and help out with Dylan and the protection with more screen game and then more quick game, where they don't have these long developing routes where it's more snap under 3 seconds, boom, the ball is out, and it slants and things like that. So I'll be curious.
I think
I'll be curious the reaction.
Right?
I'll be curious. Yeah, I'll be curious, guys, the reaction to Michigan State. Some of the things Michigan State did against them defensively to try and slow their passing game.
Well, and one other thing I'm looking for, rushing attack with play action.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, you don't see a lot. I know.
Well, it feels like you don't see a lot, but Nebraska, I think, quietly has like a 30% play action rate because you get some of those RPO looks in the backfield. And it's not like those fully drawn out Aaron Rodgers play fakes where everyone, including the cameraman, thinks the running back has it. It's like more of those shotgun, going to stick the ball out, and Emmett's going to half-heartedly go for the play action look. Like, do you see some true play action here where Nebraska is actually under center? The ball's way out here from Dylan Raiola. The whole defense thinks he's running the football, and then you have a chance to go deep. Because I think that's going to help Nebraska's offensive tackles with some of the speed rushers you have from Maryland. If they're worried about the run, they can't get 5 yards upfield, bend, turn the corner, and get after Dylan Raiola. Like, I really think the game from 1,000 feet up looks like Raiola versus Washington. Quarterbacking, I am a lot more interested in the running attack from both of these teams to see how it makes things easier for their quarterback.
Well, and okay, there's a lot of talk so far about, hey, true freshman John Butler has got, a lot of experience, and he can throw complex things that Washington has never seen, and you can heat him up. Maryland's only given up 2 sacks this year. Right? I mean, if that tells you anything about how quickly I'm not trying to make Malik Washington into Tom Brady here, but what I'm saying is Underwood a couple weeks ago, supreme athlete. I mean, that's what he is, right? Child's pretty similar, really good athlete. I think the difference is Washington is about quarterbacking. Like, really, he's about playing the position. He's more akin to like a Raiola. You can tell he's a guy that came up through quarterback camps and clinics and has been in the chosen one for a while, right? He plays the position pretty well. He gets rid of the ball. He does not hold on to it.
Is he like a young Ben Roethlisberger?
I mean, listen,
with a better knee.
I'm just saying, I don't think it's going to be as easy as we're making it out to be for Nebraska to heat him up and put all kinds of pressure on him. It can happen for a series or two, but you got to be real creative and be ready for it because, they've only given up 2 sacks all year, right? Like, the guy's not holding up. Nebraska's given up 15. If that comparison tells you anything. So I think they're going to be they're going to throw. They're a dink and dunk team. That's what they are. They're dink and dunk, and they're totally comfortable doing it. And quarterback seems comfortable enough doing that. He doesn't try to force stuff. Gary, you alluded to it right when you got on. They don't try to do too much. It's controlled passing attack. So it could be Nebraska's got to have some stamina today. Nebraska's got to be ready.
Tackle in space, get about 3 dudes around it. I mean, that's
also,
that's
again, they drop their wide receivers. His completion percentage is not like through the roof. If you love completion percentage, they drop a lot of footballs. I mean, that's why guys, I'm going back and forth. I could see Nebraska winning by a couple of scores. I said earlier in the week, I think Ja'Cory Barney houses one. Nebraska walks into the stadium today, and they have a distinct advantage in key areas on special teams. Punt return, kick return, coverage units. I think Barney returns a punt for a touchdown. That's an oddly specific prediction. I don't know if Maryland's got to stay on the field. Nebraska has the weird stat where they're good on 3rd down defense, but on 4th down, teams are 9 of 11 against them, which is crazy. But it kind of makes sense with this year's Nebraska team of, you look at some of the stats. I don't know. I could see them winning by a couple of scores or there's some mistakes here and Maryland plays hard and it's kind of back and forth and it's a game played in a phone booth, and it goes down to the 4th quarter.
If Nebraska gets out to an early lead, 14-0, like it did against Michigan State, I think Washington beats Maryland twice.
Yeah.
They own that game through 3 quarters, and then a lot of the problems of the Mike Locksley era and regimes resurfaced, and they lose. And I think if Nebraska gets out to an early lead, maybe it is a punt return for a touchdown, just like it was last week where Nebraska seemed everything's going right for the first half of the first quarter, and then Nebraska goes to sleep for 2.5 quarters before waking up. But I think Maryland is susceptible to folding early if they fall down and Nebraska keeps them down. And and you're able to put pressure on the quarterback, maybe take a few more chances, to go at him. I think Williams Nwaneri is playing pretty well. He played really well against Michigan State. Against Michigan, he looked like O'Shawn Mathis, just a little intimidated by everything and not a factor.
Blast from the past.
Last week he made his money.
Yeah.
And I thought and if he plays like he did last week and he gets to the quarterback and is relentless, and people are saying it doesn't have to be sacks, it just has to be hurries. I think all of that benefits well if Nebraska does well in the first 15 minutes of the game, and then it might be like you're saying, Gary, it could be a little bigger margin of victory than people anticipate.
I'm interested.
Vegas knows something.
Yeah, I'm interested too. You saw the defensive line. You saw a game dominated at times, especially early on with the hits on Childs. But it was Nwaneri with 6 hurries. It was McCullough off the edge. And they were playing much, much faster. The defensive line played a lot faster. And a couple of things. Who runs the football better? Whose D-line gets after the opposing quarterback better today? Those are 2 storylines that'll help determine the victory. But I'm wondering about Keona Davis. Keona Davis is a guy that had 3 hurries last week and looked to be playing faster than he did in Arrowhead, faster than he did against Michigan. Maybe that was a Michigan State thing, but we talked about Nwaneri. Is there a dance mate here with Keona? Sharpie is maybe he kind of has a game today or continues to build on last week. He had big snaps by Hoofkin as well, the giant German that got some snaps, and we'll see if he makes the road trip. That shock. I mean, who else is coming with that front 7?
Does it feel like Nebraska is still searching on the interior defensive line? I think Michigan State was their best game, but Keona Davis hasn't quite lived up to expectations so far this year. Van Poppel hasn't quite lived up to expectations. Like Gabe Moore is getting snaps because guys in the interior haven't played up to the standard. He gets pushed though. I mean, Gabe's
played good ball.
But the other guy that you bring in there because you're searching on the interior defensive line because guys I don't think have lived up to the preseason.
Judy played his best game.
He did
last week.
I think it's to be expected though, right? The guys just don't have a lot of experience, and they need game experience to turn into the guys that you think they should. They just, Hutmacher and Robinson ate up the vast majority of snaps for multiple years, and they're just getting their shot, right? And so it's going to take a little bit, but as long as you see progression, I think that's good, and I think you're seeing some of that right now. So I wouldn't say it's like, and I don't think you're saying this, Elijah, that all those guys, Keona Davis, Judy, Van Poppel are lost causes.
No, not bad.
Right? They're figuring it out. And I think that they showed signs last week. It's a group that you could expect body type wise, talent wise, to be much better late in the year than we've seen so far from them.
It's weekend edition here, the Average Joe Sports Show. Proud of Fairbury, Bill Doleman, the Iron Horse, Gary Sharp, Mark Kraynak, West Coast correspondent, and Elijah Herbel. Can like and subscribe to the Average Joe Sports Show. Do so on YouTube. Find us on Twitter as well, AJ Sports Radio, AJ Sports Pod. Getting ready for kickoff here in Nebraska and Maryland, 6.5. The number out in the desert.
Hey,
do you have a monster parlay already laid out for today, Sharpie?
I do not. Does anybody remember 2 years ago what the spread was in that god-awful game in Lincoln between Maryland and Nebraska? The Peacock special?
The 3.5? You mean the wind game?
Yeah. Well, hey, the game that – look at who was playing, who threw passes in that game for Nebraska quarterback. Jeff Sims, he's starting today for Arizona State. Chubba Purdy.
You see that line jump, brother?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a Jeff Sims impact. Chubba Purdy is statistically one of the worst quarterbacks in college football in Nevada, and Heinrich Harburg is playing tight end. That was the quarterback. Those were the 3 quarterbacks that played 2 years ago for Nebraska. Thank God they fixed that room, and the future looks bright because Harburg got hurt early in that game, and then Sims drove the team down the field, and we're like, what is this? And then, of course, the fateful pass at the end, and then the field goal, and then you're like, okay, we still need one more win to become bowl eligible, and it didn't happen. But then they turned around the next week and almost upset Wisconsin up in Madison.
It's a good start by old Chubba. That was a hell of a start. They
Yeah.
jumped out all over Wisconsin and then lost.
Under the
Yeah,
play
but there's
calling
just a-
direction of Marcus Satterfield. Don't forget that.
Yeah.
There's also like you remember the last time Nebraska played at Maryland, it was kind of like Nebraska just went in there and took care of business.
Crushed 'em.
Ramir had
Dreary day.
It was just ugh. And I don't, and back then the stadium, basically the upper deck was empty. I think there'll be a lot of Nebraska fans there. I mean, look at all the East Coasters, and hell, you could live in the Triangle. And I think Raleigh Durham is 4 hours away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think there'll be a good collection of Nebraska fans there. But I don't know, it's just a weird opponent because you don't really pay much attention to Maryland.
No.
And by the time we've gotten to Saturday, we know everything there is to know about Mathis and Stewart, the two rush ends that are freshmen that probably in a couple of years are going to be top 50 NFL guys.
Oh,
So it's just
Maryland
that
used to wear that schizophrenic helmet, with
It
the
was
state
the
crest
flag.
that can't make
It was-
up its
it was
mind.
the state flag.
Yeah,
Schizophrenic flag.
Yeah.
It's just like, make up your mind. Go with the design choice here. What are we doing?
Well, and
Everybody's a winner. Just put them all on the flag.
I know.
speaking of that helmet, and speaking of how much we just don't pay attention to Maryland, I did a rewatch of the 2016 Nebraska-Maryland game. Not all of it.
Wow.
I'm not a sicko. It was
I
Riker.
beg to differ, my friend. You turned that tape on.
It was the Riker Fife Senior Day game. If you guys remember that one, Tommy Armstrong
was that the ESPNU game?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Casper was handling
Riker
business.
Fife
wasn't he?
came in 128-7. I mentioned this to Schmidt, so he's off the board here. Does anyone remember who Maryland's star wide receiver was that day?
Ooh.
He's in the NFL.
He's in the NFL. He had, I did the math, in the first quarter and a half, he had 8 targets. He finished the game with 6 catches, 130 yards, and a touchdown.
Who?
It's not Diggs.
Not Diggs.
I was going to go with the Diggs, but
Everyone forgets DJ Moore was on that Maryland team.
Oh, there you go.
And
Yeah.
he had a day against Nebraska. But that just speaks to how little we follow Maryland. Like, there's a future NFL star playing wide receiver for Maryland that day. They had a freshman quarterback, and every single time he dropped back to pass, it was just, you could see it in his eyes.
Well,
okay, where's DJ Moore? Nebraska bracketed him. He had a great day. But that's how little we pay attention to Maryland.
Yeah. One of the things I remember about the 16 game is that quarterback that Maryland started, his last name was so long, it didn't fit on the screen on ESPN.
Yeah.
Like they left out a couple of letters.
Poor kid was a true freshman, I think, making his first start. But my question to you, Gary,
Or
is
Schwarter or something like that.
Mark, if you have something first, I was going to bring it back to today. If you want to go back to that game, though, feel free.
No, I want to. Well, no, I was going to bring it back to today
Wait,
too.
I want to bring it back to today by asking, Maryland doesn't have a DJ Moore, do they? We talk so much about the quarterback position. The wide receivers are experienced. I don't think they're spectacular. I think they're solid. Like what can Nebraska's secondary expect from those guys?
Drops. They drop balls. I mean, they dropped 21 balls this year. I mean, that's 14% of their pass attempts have been dropped. I don't know. I think it looked like Washington did a better job in the second half of adjusting, and they started to mug their wide receivers. So, we'll see how aggressive Nebraska is at the line of scrimmage. I think John Butler is starting to get into his bag of coverages. He knows those DBs better than anybody else, and he knows what their strengths are, and they're finally getting push up front because it's not necessarily, okay, this is a different pressure package. Going back to something that we were all talking about here a little bit ago, Nebraska against Michigan State started to win one-on-one battles. When Neri, it's not like when Neri all of a sudden was shifting here and shifting there. He was just running right through his guy. He was winning a one-on-one battle. They didn't do as much with McCullough of moving him around. McCullough just put his hand in the dirt and won a one-on-one battle. So, they can do that up front, and then it gives you a little bit of leverage in the back end. But I think this is a day where, this is the kind of game where Holgerson and Butler and Eckler, that's why you paid money for those three to put something together that gives your guys a chance to get their feet on the ground and then, show that you have, you are better and win a football game on the road.
Should the receiver Shalik Knotts is the guy to watch.
Yep, he's a touchdown guy.
18 catches, 5 of them are touchdowns. 6'3", senior. He's played all 4 years, but you can tell he's been biding his time. He's never had this is his best year by far. I don't know if it's injuries or what, but that's a good counter if you're Maryland to Nebraska's experienced secondary and experienced defensive coach, right? You're not going against rookies. and 6'3" receiver, right? Obviously, he's got size on Marshall and Sierra Wright and almost whoever they want to put against him, short of Singleton if he goes in the slot. So, they've got some guys. They got some guys where looks
like there are 50-50. There looks like there are a lot of 50-50 balls that they're starting to win. Probably. Yeah, that they're starting to win.
Yeah. Yeah. But what I was going to bring up is what is the key to get Dane Key?
Oh,
the football. The football. He's on a milk carton, a couple games in a row. He's not a game breaker receiver. He's not Hunter. He's not Barney. He's a possession guy. He's Jordan Westerkamp. That's what Dane Key is. But the ball's not found him at all. And that's Dylan's roommate, right? Like that's a problem. Like how's that going in the house?
You got to chip in on the electric bill if you want the football.
Yeah, I don't know. Like where you at on the LES payment, bro? Like what's going on?
Make sure you get rid of it. Make sure you pay that Time Warner cable bill.
Yeah. I see your half. You see the football.
I know. Is Dane like in the kitchen? Be like, do you see me? I'm right here, Dylan. Like you ignoring me?
This?
Like,
it's the bill.
What is it? I think it's 3 catches last 2 weeks or something like that. This is your big transfer from
Michigan
Kentucky.
State.
But listen, he's not a game breaker though. So if people were expecting that he was going to be Tavon Austin, like no, it's not. Well, it's not his game. He's a possession guy.
So is his best role, and I think there were a couple of times where he was open that Dylan didn't pull the trigger. Yeah. So maybe they're having maybe he left dishes in the sink or something like that. So he said I'm going to make you pay. There were a couple times
he ate the last ramen with the shrimp powder instead of the chicken.
He drinks the milk out of the carton and puts it back in the fridge. There were a couple of times that he was open. Maybe Key's best attribute and the best way to use him is what we saw in Kansas City. One of the best plays that Nebraska's had offensively all year is the touchdown to Key in the end zone, that little slant. Yeah. Maybe they use him more like that. Michigan State did a good job of taking away the slot. So Nebraska had to adjust on the fly. But it also might be this, guys. Barney's not a guy. Barney is a guy they use appropriately. Isaiah Hunter has become kind of the guy.
Isaiah's impressive.
I mean,
he almost hit 22 miles an hour with one shoe off his foot. I mean, seriously, that's some acceleration and some explosion from that guy. But I wonder if that could help Raiola too, where he's holding it a little too long. Key is a guy that you talk about 50-50 balls. Trust Key in that situation. Even if he's covered or whatever, like he is going to absolutely fight for it. You don't have to worry about that too much. It feels like he could be a safer outlet for Dylan that Dylan's not taking. Let's see.
I'll tell you who might like today as they try and get their feet on the ground in the passing game. Look at Emmett Johnson. Emmett Johnson. They would get him out of the backfield, and all of a sudden he'd be running a drag route. And there's a play last Saturday that if Dylan throws it right away, it's 6.
Yeah.
They had guys. And again the pocket broke down, and I've said you can't talk about the offensive line without talking about the quarterback and vice versa. They run. If you sit up a little bit higher in Memorial Stadium and watch the game, their route tree is pretty impressive. I mean, they do have some guys that if they win the battle off the line of scrimmage, have an opportunity to be pretty wide open.
And then Dylan needs to have a little.
He's got to just throw it.
Is that going to be fixed today?
I don't know. We haven't seen Glenn Thomas, so I haven't been able to ask him. Which, by the way, no, I'm serious. Like Glenn Thomas still is on Nebraska staff, but we don't ever talk about him. I don't know. There might be some things that are just you're not going to fix with Dylan. The clock in his head, holding the ball a little bit too long. The NFL will look at all of that stuff, but I think that's where, as an offensive coordinator, you have to say, okay, we can't fix this today, but I can help you with this today. But sometimes you just got to do your job. Like see it and throw it instead of think too much. And you hope that Dylan doesn't get to a point in his career at Nebraska where he sees ghosts. I don't think we're at that point yet, but if that's the case, then you know what? I'd kick your uncle out of the house as well.
Speaking of roommates.
But at the end, going back to something Elijah brought up, Bill brought up, Nebraska has to be able to run the ball when they want to run the ball. If they can run the ball when they want to run the ball, it will help immensely in the passing game. It will open so many things up. And so maybe that's something they try and establish on the road today to say, you know what, we need something that can travel to College Park, can travel to Minneapolis, is we're going to line up and run the football.
There's
and make you stop us.
There's nothing that a true pass rusher hates more than having to play the run. True pass rushers love getting around that corner, trying to beat that tackle to that spot about 4 yards behind the line of scrimmage, bend around the corner and get to the quarterback. You can't do any of that if you're worried about the run, because you got to stand up your offensive tackle and maintain the edge. If you are trying to pass rush around, it opens up running lanes, so you have to play it differently. And pass rushers hate it whenever there's a downhill running attack because it takes away what they do best.
No, okay, they can play all three downs.
Yeah. Okay, so let's all pretend we're Donovan Raiola, not Dylan. Donovan. If Pritchett's out, what are you doing at tackle today? Who's starting at what spot?
I think Gatula goes back to left and Teddy is it right.
You bring Teddy back.
Well, who else would you bring? Here's the thing about last week.
Kraynak.
Did you guys notice Kraynak got moved to right guard on the depth chart?
Okay.
All 5 linemen played all 55 snaps last week. They didn't play any backups. So there was no Sledge, there was no Kraynak, there was no Teddy. You know, the only other offensive lineman that played any snaps was Corcoran when he came in as a blocking tight end.
So you put in Gatula at left?
I think you move him back there and you play Teddy where he's been.
Bring in Teddy back. Okay.
If you're forced to do that today. But what it does is, if that's the case, one of your best run blocking tackles is, not going to be available.
Yeah. Okay.
But here, another part of it is you don't have a running back that loves running inside zone, like between the guards.
Well,
they don't have that. They don't have that. They don't have the hammer. Yeah.
Right. That's all they call is zone stuff right now.
But running between the guards, I should say. There is a thing about Emmett. Did Emmett off the bye look a little bit fresher?
And did he seem like
he wasn't dancing as much? Now he still does that, and it drives me nuts. But he looked like he was fresher and quicker off the bye.
He's seeing lanes better too.
Are you surprised that he didn't get like 20 plus carries last week against Michigan State? He was playing well.
He's shot out of a cannon. His acceleration is.
Well, he had the touchdown.
He had for 45 minutes, so he wasn't on the field.
Whenever things were going poorly for you in that second and third quarter, I was super surprised that Dana didn't say, you know what, let's take some pressure off of Dylan here and run the ball with Emmett. He was still dropping back on first down with great field position. I don't think Dana, when Nebraska's offense was struggling, did the offense any favors to try to break them out of that slump.
I think you said a key there, though. He's coming off the bye. They got a little time to heal up the body, get some rest. The bye week came at a good time for Nebraska after the Michigan loss, to do some inventory, but also to rest up. He did look fresher against Michigan State. Now, he's not going against a team as good as Michigan, but he did look a little bit better. But they still have to find, and this was our discussion earlier, who's the RB2 that's going to get carries, be a target in the screen game. Who is somebody that they can rely on to run the ball inside the freaking 10-yard line?
I'm over that, by the way. I'm officially tapping out on the RB2 conversation.
Yeah,
and that's not to you, Bill. I'm just I don't think they're going to fix it.
But I agree with you. But we're talking about establishing the run with Emmett. Okay, then we're back to him getting the 35 touches a game, and that cannot happen. So that was the mystery in the first half of the show. I brought it up. It was like, okay, so who's 2? And we still don't know. And that's problematic for Nebraska. You can't expect Emmett Johnson to be a fresh back second half of the season, or even in second half of games, if he is 35 to 40% of your offense in one way, shape, or another. Yeah. And so that's why I'm not convinced Nebraska's run game is going to get much better until they get somebody who can give them some relief. But also, again, go back to what I also said, you got to run the ball inside the freaking 10-yard line. You got to be able to get and not get and inside the 5-yard line. They still can't score from there.
I did like the increased creativity Nebraska had in the running game. And it's not just that weird double handoff with Dylan and then back around to Emmett. That counter they ran to Emmett to score the touchdown late was a creative run call from Dana, where you get 2 tight ends on a counter play. Typically, your traditional counter, if you guys don't know, it's typically guard and tackle. The guard kicks out the end of the line of scrimmage. The tackle pulls around and is the lead blocker up in the hole. Nebraska ran that, but as opposed to running it with a guard and a tackle, they ran it with Lindenmeyer and Harburg. That's a very creative play on a counter look that I love the creativity. You don't have a guard pull that the linebackers can key on. It's the tight ends pulling around. It makes things difficult on a defense. I love that creativity of that running play in particular. And I wonder if Dana has some more tricks up his sleeve in terms of getting creative inside the 10, because their current plays, which have been more zone looks since you've lost Bonner, they've been more zone looks, hat on a hat inside, let Emmett pick the hole. That hasn't worked great. I did like to see Dana get a little bit more creativity down there.
Their offense inside the 10 is predictably pass, run for a yard or two, throw the fade, kick the field goal. That's Nebraska inside the 10. It's always pass, run, pass. Ineffective. They can't run the ball. It should be the other way around at best, or at least, but they can't run effectively. And he's not a hammer back. Yeah. Anyway, I talked about the running backs earlier.
Yeah.
I think they got to figure out the rest of the year, like what do carries look like when they're not Emmett carries? You know, if it's Nelson, Mosey, whoever it might be, is it Harburg? I don't think they're having a distinguished running back too. I thought that was going to be Mekhi Nelson, but he's been a little bit of a letdown. In terms of being consistent and being right there with Emmett, because he looked great in camp, but then they turned the lights on and he hasn't been consistent, and I don't think they trust him enough. So the other part of the conversation as the season will go into the second half, guys, is the distribution of pass to run. Because what is it, 59% to 41% right now?
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah. I mean, that's not the Big Ten. Yeah. That's not the Big Ten world that you want to live in. And Nebraska really hasn't lived in that world. They've been more, closer to 50-50. Does that change in the second half of the year when the weather changes and, teams get a little bit more difficult to run the football on, which Nebraska is going to in this stretch right now? Do they just stick with the passing, or do they try and establish themselves? That's what I think the scripted plays today will tell you a lot about what Nebraska thinks they can do and will continue to do all day.
Yeah. I think Nebraska misses Bonner in the run game too. Something we haven't talked about a ton.
Point. That's a great point.
But, a guy that you can line up in the backfield as a fullback, a threat to carry it himself, guy you can motion in and out of the backfield, super physical. It's probably they were probably counting on that quite a bit.
Well,
he's trying to find a way without.
Yeah, he's the guy in a personnel package that when he comes into the game, you get no tells on what Nebraska is going to be doing. Right. That's Swiss Army knife nature that makes things tough. I do want to flip it around here to the defensive side of the ball and ask Malcolm Hartzog. Yeah. A bit of a mysterious injury situation going on with Hartzog. Is Nebraska missing him at all in the back end? Is this a game where they do miss Malcolm Hartzog, just knowing how much Maryland likes to throw the football?
Yeah, I love Hartzog as a safety. No. But I think Guthrie's emerged. If there was no Guthrie's playing. He's playing good ball, man. I mean, that guy looks like a stalwart at safety that you're going to be able to count on for a few years. He does not play like a freshman. And I also think defensively, what do y'all think about just the general athleticism and kind of freakish nature of some of the guys that are starting to come around on Nebraska's defense right now? Like you mentioned Waneri, that's a special body type right there. McCullough, same way. Javen Wright, even
Dawson Merritt.
Right, you got some guys.
Yeah, but I think what it shows, Mark, is the Nebraska's been a little slow in plotting the older guys. Now the new guys look faster, sleeker, and faster. You know, it's the used car compared to the new car, and you're trying to blend them together. I actually go back to real quick. I think Nebraska's better in the secondary without Hartzog. And it's not a Malcolm. It's not a hit on Malcolm. It has made them establish positions where Sierra Wright's playing nickel corner. You know, Singleton has a little bit more freedom to do what he wants to do. So they've done a good job adjusting. And then Rex Guthrie is coming. You know, so I think they've had to cut down who's playing in the back end because they're forced to without Hartzog, and Buford isn't. You know, Buford had a bad game against Michigan. It didn't seem like he was out there a lot against Michigan State. I don't remember what his snaps are. I just think they've had to cut down who's playing. Like they're choosing their best guys and they're rolling with those guys instead of trying to get, 9 defensive backs in during the course of a game.
They did that quite a bit last week. They did shorten the bench,
And
offensively and defensively.
Marshall's been really good at corner. I've watched him. He's stride for stride. He missed a tackle in the Michigan game and came back and made a big open field tackle against Michigan State. He was a great FCS find, and to bring him up and coach him up. And I don't think we can underestimate or underappreciate. I think Addison Williams has been terrific in the secondary room as the new coach with John Butler. As you said, Gary, he knows those guys because he coached the secondary last year. So I think that's a real complimentary coaching staff with Williams and Butler. That's been really good. The thing that with Hartzog, now that he's no longer a cornerback, I think he's good to have out there just to have to get a little rotation, keep guys fresh. He's been a solid safety. He has a knack to make big plays. He also has a knack to get burned. But he's made big plays, case in point, the end of the Cincinnati game. And all of that's right there in a microcosm of, what happened before he made the interception. I think they just miss him because they miss an experienced rotational player, but he's not one that has to be out there that they're relying on because they do have developing depth in the secondary. I think Nebraska's secondary is fantastic, and it's nothing like what Malik Washington has seen so far.
And guys, as we start to wind things down here, what does Nebraska's secondary need to do to Malik Washington stats-wise? If we're going to dive into the stats, what does the stat line look like for Malik Washington if Nebraska gets out of College Park with a victory?
175 yards passing, 2 interceptions.
Yeah,
his completion percentage is about 57%.
I'm about 26 for 40, under 200 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions. That's about where I'm at, Gary, as well.
Yeah.
He's pretty remarkably consistent. He's been between 219 and 276 all 5 games.
He won't. I don't think he gets to his season average today. This is a secondary like he hasn't seen before.
Yeah.
And if Nebraska has the kind of pressure along the front, Winery, McCullough, Keona Davis, Javen Wright had one of his best games as a Husker last week. Not that he's the pass rush threat that I think Winery is, but if they get to him, and they get to him like they did Childs, he will see ghosts and he will force it, and there will be a couple of picks.
Yeah, I'll be curious what they do.
Nebraska's playing really good team defense, I think. Even though the defensive line is a weakness, what they did to making adjustments in the way they attacked Michigan State I thought was great coaching. Like, you're not going against Michigan's offensive line.
Yeah.
So you're playing an offensive line in Michigan State that's more on par, PER of Nebraska's defensive line, and Nebraska did a lot of things to mix things up against Michigan State that they were not prepared for, and as a result, Childs had the game that he had. I think the same thing for Maryland. Nebraska's defensive line can match up athletically. They do some things schematically. They can get to the quarterback.
And to flip it around here offensively, what do you guys think Dylan's stat line looks like if Nebraska gets out of here with a win?
He needs 250. He needs 250. He needs to. They need to keep the sacks under 4 for him today. I think Maryland will get theirs at some point, especially if Nebraska's, bringing a backup tackle back onto the field. I think Maryland will get a few. And then, but to go back to Washington, I think you got to keep him shy of 200, and then you'll be okay.
If he's under 200, Nebraska wins fairly handily.
Is it sustainable for Nebraska to finish the year holding opponents to under 100 yards passing? I'm just like,
No.
that can't. You don't finish a year like that ever, right? Like, has any defense ever done that? That just seems so crazy.
I mean, they're and that's why. So I want to. I agree with everything you guys have said about the pass defense, and it's trending in the right direction. And Bill, thank you for bringing up Andrew Marshall, because we really don't talk about him. He's just a steady player. That's a great pickup from Idaho. Let's do a deeper dive after this game about the pass defense, because this is a team that they throw the ball. Like, they don't have a running quarterback. They don't have Sorsby. They don't have Marshall, or excuse me, Underwood. They don't have Childs. They have a guy that stands in the pocket and tries to pick you apart. So that's the first time they're seeing something like that. So after this game, maybe we have discussions about, man, that 09 pass defense was really good. This one might be one that we need to discuss further halfway through the season. But they are doing a great job. And, team defense, again, Bill, thank you for bringing that up. Team defense is something that they're learning, that they have a couple of could-be stars on this. But, everybody takes a role every week. But I do expect today, I expect Winery to be really good again. I think you've heard all about the other side freshman rush ends. I think Winery reminds people on BTN today that he should be talked about as well as a redshirt freshman and a young guy that's chasing the quarterback in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
If you go back to the Michigan game, and there are times when Winery looked like Chris Jones against Jacksonville on the final play.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just not interested anymore.
That one stung.
Yeah. Sorry, bud. But he looked like the second half, like I'm beaten. And there was a lot of no want to in the second half from Winery. Last week, he was relentless, more evenly matched up or superior to the guy across the line from him. That's why I brought him up earlier. I was just so impressed with the way he was relentless in the game. He had the play where he almost had a sack, does a U-turn, gets a little help from his buddies, and comes back and finishes off the play against an Aiden Childs that it was supposed to be a very athletic and mobile quarterback. And Winery went after him, missed him, and got him, and came back and got him again. That was as good a play defensively as Justin Evans had on his block on Hunter's touchdown. And if that Winery plays today and has that kind of confidence against the guy on the other side of the line, he'll be a factor. But I like a lot of other guys. I like McCullough a lot. I think, boy, he's so impressive in the press conference. Holy smokes, that guy's good.
Well, he's a freakish athlete too. Him and Winery both are. You take them to the combine, they are going to test off the charts. Like, their arms and hands are, oh my God, like
they're measurables, unbelievable.
Like dolphin flippers for hands. Oh my God, they're not even going to be able to handle it. So it's cool that they're playing to that potential. Like you're seeing, because they're gifted. Those are two very gifted players. By the way, just went back to 2016 pass defense. The team that finishes number one against the pass yards wise, generally around 150, 160 yards a game. Nebraska's at 98 or 91. Wow. Those are outlandish numbers to where you wonder if that dam's going to break at some point, right? Those are crazy numbers, unprecedented numbers.
Well, look at the teams on the schedule that really threaten through the air. Maryland, USC, maybe UCLA. I think from what I've seen from Penn State so far this year, I'm more worried about their rushing attack than their.
By the way, UCLA last week, like that was a run heavy attack. That's why Penn State it was like 230 rushing, 160 some passing. So UCLA doesn't throw it that well either. Nebraska might set an all time kind of situation if they can maintain this. Today will be tough though because they're facing a quarterback that doesn't hold the ball. Just takes the easy throw all game.
All right, guys. Last thought here before we get you out. We got to squeeze this into radio, so this will replay noon to 2. So if you're listening noon to 2, thank you. Get all set for kickoff. Last thought here around the room, 1 to 10. What's your confidence Nebraska gets out of College Park with a victory?
I'll go 7.5.
I like it. I'm going 8.
Yeah.
I've talked myself into it today. I'm also at an 8.
Yeah.
And as much as I don't think the atmosphere in College Park is usually very good, I think there's going to be a lot of people, as Gary mentioned earlier, from the Delmarva area, New York. They're going to make the trip. There's going to be a lot of Nebraska fans at that game. And after what Maryland did last week against Washington, the interest level might be low. I don't think their students are on campus. The weather might turn, during the game and certainly tomorrow. I think Nebraska fans are a hardy bunch. They're going to say, if the Huskers are in the neighborhood, we're going. So that might create a different kind of atmosphere than they are used to. It could be wrong. Maybe they got 70,000 people in a 50,000 seat stadium, and they're all waving that wacky Maryland flag. But I think that Nebraska probably has a nice contingent of fans. I think the road game is a great time for the year, for this point in the season. And I think Raiola has a pretty nice game. I think Nebraska's defense is good, and I think they probably win comfortably. I think Vegas knows something.
Bill Doleman, Gary Sharp, Mark Kraynak with you on this pregame edition of the Average Joe Sports Show. A reminder to check out the Real Red Reaction Show, 6 o'clock-ish, following the final whistle. Nebraska and Maryland will be on the air. We'll be streaming live as well. Get your thoughts in. Join us in that stream chat or give us a phone call as well. Guys, appreciate all of you hanging out here this morning. Enjoy the game. We'll talk with you post-game. Good, bad, or ugly. We'll see what Nebraska does. Thanks for hanging out.
Godspeed.